I'd like to say good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
It's good to see everyone out this evening, and we're going to be in Revelations chapter 11, starting in the 15th verse. That's where we're going to start. I was going to play a video for John, and if I get to come up here when we get done, I might play it for him. And it kind of made me smile. Of course, yesterday was my birthday, and my two grandsons sung happy birthday to me. Sarah recorded it, and at the end they said, "and many more." And she asked me, she said, "Where did they get that from?" I said, "Well, they had to come to church and they heard John say it. That's where they got that from." And it was pretty cute, pretty funny, but yeah, I figured John would like that. I might see if I can get it here. That's why I'll play it for him. But yeah, Revelations chapter 11. We're going to start in verse 15. We finished up the third woe, which ended at verse 14. So we're going to start in, and he says, "And the seventh angel sounded, and there was a great voice in heaven saying, The kingdom of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever." This is during the Great Tribulation period that they have that's going on, and the kingdoms of this world, they're saying, is going to dissolve. We have all of these different countries and the different nations and different people ruling, and they think that, and they're always fighting, and there's struggling going on, and even all the stuff's going on, and there's going to come a time when it's all going to fade away, and it all belongs to the Lord. They are only in charge for a little while, and it is not theirs anyway. But it is just theirs for just a little while, and then it's all going to be turned over to the Lord. But it says, "And the 24 elders which sat before God on their seats fell upon their faces and worshiped God, saying, He gave these thanks, O Lord Almighty, which art and was and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thine great power and has reigned." So we see the elders that has been described before of sitting around the throne begin to praise God for now what is about to happen. Their gratitude for the millennial reign of the kingdom, and it's getting ready to take place, and we're getting ready to see the end of what's the Satan and being cast out, and all these things are getting ready to happen over the next few chapters of Revelations. So they are worshiping him, the God that sat upon the throne, praising him for what is about to happen. It says, "And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they may be judged, and that thou shouldest give rewards unto the servants, the prophets, and to the saints, and to them that fear thy name, small and great, and shall destroy them which destroy the earth." These are the 24 elders around God's throne. They're praising him for what he's about to do. He is about to pour out his judgment upon those that are left. He's going to pour out the judgment and reward those that has been faithful and stayed the course. And they go on, it says, "And the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of the judgment," or the ark of the covenant, and there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and earthquakes and great hail. The Ark of the Covenant, that is the covenant that God made with his people that was there. The Ark of the Covenant is in the Old Testament quite a bit, and we can see, there's people that says that it's lost, that they're looking for it, and all of these things that's going on, and it simply tells us here it's in the throne room of God. So I don't understand why, and that was one of the things that got my attention when they was reading it. You can watch all of these shows and watch all these films of these people going around trying to find the Ark of the Covenant. If they read right here in the Bible, it tells you where it's at. It's in the throne room of God. So we have here the 24 elders, and they're worshiping God, and they fall upon their face and know that he's getting ready to do something. And take out his judgment, and he's opened up his throne room, and he's getting ready to pour it out.
I read someplace one time where that hail could be as much as 100 pounds a ball. I don't know how they know that.
Yeah, I don't think I've read anything on that hail and
how big it is. It's great, but
yeah. Then we go into verse 12 or chapter 12 here. And the one of the things that makes it so hard to understand Revelation is this what that is here. We have to be able to interpret it spiritually instead of trying to look at it through human eyes. So when you read it, a lot of it doesn't make sense until you think of it in a different way. But it talks about here in chapter 12, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 jewels, or 12 stars. Now, if you take and to think of this, the woman in this sense, from reading all the commentaries, represents Israel. It represents of the things that if we read it and see and looking at that, this woman having the 12 stars represents the 12 tribes of Israel. And of course, the moon under her feet, and the sun in her head, clothed in the sun, and the moon under her feet, also has different meanings of things to come. And in verse 2 here, it goes on and says, and she being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. Now, the child represents the Messiah, which is Jesus the Christ, in this sense. So you can see how all of this is taking place. Israel, of course, Jesus come from the tribe of Israel, or from the chosen people of God, and we have this getting ready to take place. But it says, and there appeared another wonder in heaven. And behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon its head. And his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Now, of course, the dragon here represents the Antichrist, or the devil, or a lot of the other names that they have here for it. Red represents the blood or the murder of the innocent that was taken as Satan did, the 7 heads and 7 crowns. Of course, we need to remember that 7 is the number for completeness, and it showed that it had power and influence upon the people of the earth. And it's kind of interesting if you think of it that way. The third part of the stars, I think, if we would take a look at, represents the third part of the fallen angels that Satan took with him when he left. and being cast into the earth represents here what is about the judgment that is about to come.
So, of the people that's left, are they going to see all this stuff? This dragon?
I believe there's going to be some of that that's going to be seen. I don't know that they're going to see it as a dragon. They may not see it in that manner. I think there will be other things that happen. I wanted for just a minute, if I can find my where I marked here. And you kind of think of Satan being already cast to the earth, and Satan already being upon the earth. But it says here that his tail drew a third part of it says, first of all, it says another wonder in heaven. So apparently, this Satan was also in heaven, or up in that heaven. You understand that heavens means there's three heavens, according to the Old Testament. The heaven is here. It's the air that we breathe. The first heaven is where the birds fly, and the air that we breathe is considered the first heaven. The second heaven is the moon and the stars, and I really believe that this is where these angels that has been cast out of the third heaven, which represents where God lives. So, and thinking of it in that term spiritually, that says that they're in heaven, which could be the second heaven, and being cast out. They've been cast out, so they represent the stars and stuff. If you go back to Job, and this is one that stuck in my mind when I read this. Job chapter 2 starts off and says, "And there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among to present himself before the Lord." So, we go in verse 2, it says, "And the Lord said unto Satan, From whence thou comest? And Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it." So the Old Testament even says that Satan presents himself before the Lord with all of the other sons of God. So in my thinking, that means he's in the second heaven. He's been cast out of the third heaven with the angels that fell or in the second heaven. But he can come to the first heaven. And, I know that's confusing. But the Bible here tells us that there was a wonder in heaven. There appeared another wonder in heaven, which I believe is where the stars and the moon is. And the great dragon came down. We can read here very shortly that there's going to be a battle that's going to take place. But it says, let's go on to verse 5 first before I get too far ahead of myself. I probably done lost a lot of you, haven't we? Done lost what's going on here. But what it is when the Satan and his angels, from what I've read in other commentaries and what I can find, seems to be on my own, it is that they have been cast out of heaven, as we think of heaven, but they are able to roam between the stars and the moons and the earth. It says that he went to and fro, or up and down. Whew, all of that. And it goes back to the scene in verse 5 of the woman. "And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, which she hath a place prepared of God. And they should feed her there 1,260 days." Now, again, there's a lot of symbols that things is being in here, but we have to look at it spiritually. Of course, the woman who gave birth, now to the Messiah who is to rule over the earth. And it says that she fled into the wilderness. Now, anything that was outside of Jerusalem and Judea, they considered the wilderness. That means the land that belonged to the Gentiles. So outside of their country, outside of their area is considered the wilderness. So it's saying that she fled from where she was at. Now this is Israel. She represents the people of Israel. So when all of this dragon comes down and Satan starts to make his reign, he's out to destroy God's people. He is the enemy of God's people. So, but God has made a place. God has prepared a way for his people, Israel, who is represented by the woman, in the wilderness, which is where the Gentiles lived. He has made a way for them to hide. He has made a way, and I believe that is through us, through the church, through the believers, that we will hide and take care of the Israel people. It says that, and she fled into the wilderness where the Gentiles lived, where she had the place prepared of God. I believe that's preparing us. That they should feed her there 1,260 years. 1,260 days is what that represents, which is 3.5 years. They are going to be hid, and the Gentiles will hide them from the enemies to keep all of them from being murdered. Do you see how I believe now how the country of Israel has so many people against it now? They always has been, but do you see it getting worse today? Even a lot here in the United States wants to turn our back on them. They want us to quit supporting them. In Revelations here, after a while, we'll get talking into it, and I'll go ahead and kind of bring up a little bit of it now. In Revelations, and later on, it talks about the enemy from the north that will come down and try to wipe out Israel. If you go and study a little bit now, the nation that's north of them is Russia. Now, if you look on your map, that Russia's up there. Russia has had nothing to do with them, or really there was no concern to Russia at all until recently. See, Russia has always been the leading supplier of natural gas to Europe. Well, what has happened with this war that's going on now over in Ukraine? Their supply lines have been blowing up and severed. Guess where they just discovered over the last few years one of the largest natural gas reserves in the world? Right off the shores of Israel. So now everybody's trying to negotiate with Israel to get the natural gas. So now the enemy from the north now is starting to pay attention to them. We'll get into that maybe a little bit more when we get over that part. But here we have the Israel people, the Israelites, that they are being sought after by Satan, which is the red dragon, trying to wipe them out, and they're hiding. Verse 7. And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels was cast out with him. So we see a war that takes place between Satan and Michael, the archangel. And of course, Satan loses this and is cast and banished to the earth. And it's something that you look in verse 9, the names that they called him, the great dragon was cast out. Take a look at that. The dragon, of course, in this study Bible I got here, it's got out now, we'll just read it out to you here. That it says the dragon is the pictures his monstrous characters as the enemy of God. What's the next thing he's called? That old serpent. See, the serpent, it connects him with the clever deception of Eve in the garden in Genesis, right? What's the next thing they describe him as?
Devil.
The devil means, that in Hebrew, it's a slanderer. The devil is the slanderer. The next thing they call him. Satan is the adversary of God. So you see his description of the different names that they have. That's the reason why when you read this, a lot of it you have to look at as through a spiritual eye. Isn't that something? He really has deceived the whole world. So much of the world is deceived. I don't know how many of you have pays attention to the messages that we post on Facebook, but we had someone that commented to them, and they actually did it on the Facebook. A lot of times she comments to me, and I'm back and forth with them, with her on different things, and she said that she would admit that her biggest sin is not caring as much for the lost as we should. And I said, I believe that I have preached that in here a few times. The biggest concern, I think, that the problem that the church has is apathy. You don't see people going to the altar and praying and crying over the lost souls like they used to. I believe this world has gotten so wicked and is getting worse by the minute that even the Christians, we don't cry out like we should. We don't have that concern for the lost like I think we should. And that is really something concerning. I believe that's why you see so many empty pews anymore. Not in just this church, but every church you go to. I was talking with someone this week, and they were asking how the church was. They were a former United Methodist who got out, and she's always asking how we're doing. She said they're down to like 6 people. She can remember when their church was full, and they don't know what they're going to do when those 6 pass off. I said, I hate to hear, you probably don't want to hear this, but what they're going to do is they'll shut the door. And that'll be the end of the church.
That's all was left at the Swiss Methodist Church, 6 people, last time I talked to.
I see that happening even in this church. We get down to a year ago, we had 40 people. The year before that, we had 50 people. Now we can't hardly get 30 out. What's it going to be in another year? Or another 2 years? Go out to 10 years if we last that long, if the Lord don't come. People just, and we're all guilty. I'm as guilty of it as anybody else is. We just don't seem to have that we go out and witness to people. We don't go and knock on doors like we used to. We don't go out and do the things that they used to do because you know why? We all are so busy we just don't know how in the world we're going to get the time.
Rodney Wayne is really good.
He is. He is. He's really good. I can remember when I went to church as a teenager, the goal of that church was to knock on every door in the county and leave a Bible and witness to every home there is in Clay County. It took about 3 to 4 years, but they did it. Because I went out with a lot of them as a teenager. Woodrow Gray is who I went out a lot with. And knocked on a lot of doors. People just don't do it anymore. Apathy in the church. And I believe that is one of the things that he's talking about here is this old serpent, the deceiver, has got the world so blind, even the Christians. He goes on and says here in verse 10, the world's, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. Again, it sounds like the old adversary we have had access to heaven to accuse us day and night. But that now has been destroyed and been cast out. He's been cast down to the earth and has that access no more. And they overcome him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of his testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. Who's he talking about? Those that had been martyred, those that had stand the ground, those that had been false witness against them. He said that they overcome him by the blood of the Lamb. How did Jesus fight him in the wilderness? It is written. He battled him with the Bible. He battled him with God's word. It's through that word of God and through the blood of the Lamb that we'll make it. He says, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. All of the things that had happened on earth, all of those that had been killed through these previous 6 trumpets, or 6 angels, the 6 things that's happened. Here, those that are left, what woe there was upon the earth. This is, when they talked about the third woe, this is what's happening. When that devil comes down because he has lost the battle, oh, how angry and upset that he's going to be. Having great wrath, as it says here in the 12th verse. And when the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. Remember, the woman is Israel, God's chosen people. When he was cast to the earth, he persecuted what was remaining of God's people. And the woman was given wings of a great eagle. In other words, the Israelites will be given a way to escape. Wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place. What did I say the wilderness was? That's the Gentiles that will hide God's people. For she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. The great serpent is going to come to try to destroy God's chosen people. They are going to turn to the Gentiles, which will hide them and protect them and take care of them. And the serpent cast out of his mouth waters as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away out of the flood. That the book here says that symbolizes an overwhelming evil and persecution upon those, is what the flood represents. They're going to pour out so much trying to destroy God's people, but it says, and the earth helped the woman. Those Gentiles helped Israel to escape what's happening. And the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. The Gentiles are going to help God's chosen people. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of God and had the testimony of Jesus Christ. The adversary is going to continue to come after God's people until the very end. Well, we're going to quit right there for tonight. It's going to be the beginning of the first beast that we'll get into next time, if the Lord willing, if something else doesn't happen. Again, as you read this, read into it, not what you read it with the natural eye, but look at it spiritually as we go through it. Anyone have anything else?
You know, you talked about Russia there. I read somewhere where Russia's already training the horses. They crossed the Morgan with the Clydesdale, and they're already training the horses to attack Israel with.
No way, I don't doubt it one bit.